Hello everyone, Silent here and welcome back to another Bedrock Edition tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to build a super simple and very efficient flower farm and dye farm in your Bedrock Edition worlds. This farm produces up to 87,000 flowers per hour, which is 87,000 dyes. Most importantly, this works for any and all of the one tall flowers in the game, so it is dye specific. If you need yourself a whole bunch of yellow dye, for example, pop in a dandelion and you'll get 87,000 dandelions in 1 short hour. Another amazing bonus of this farm is that it's also a bone meal farm as well, because you get more bone meal out of the system than you put into it if you decide to compost all of your flowers. So for example, if you put 9 stacks of bone meal into the farm, you'll get yourself about 11.5 stacks of bone meal out of it. So you can choose to farm bone meal using flowers if you so choose. Just so you can visualize what 87,000 items an hour looks like, you will get over 2 double chests of flowers every 5 minutes, or a full double chest of dye in just 2.5 minutes of using the farm. Furthermore, you'll get about 6,700 flowers from 9 stacks of bone meal, which is nearly 2 double chests. Overall, pretty insane, and there's no reason you shouldn't build this if you want to build literally anything using color. Let's quickly go over the mechanics of this farm, how it is built, why it works, and why you should definitely build this in your worlds. First of all, a little disclaimer, this does not work for the wither roses. You can't bone meal these, so we gotta farm them elsewhere in the end dimension. It does work for all of the one tall flower types though. So this farm works for the dandelions, poppies, blue orchids, alliums, azure bluettes, red, orange, white, pink tulips, oxeye daisies, cornflowers, and lily of the valleys. It does not work for the 2 tall flower types, sunflowers, lilacs, rose bushes, or peonies. However, you shouldn't be bone mealing these things anyway. These are an absolute waste of bone meal. If you bone meal them, you only get 1 flower per bone meal, and that only gives you 2 dye. An absolute and utter disgusting waste of bone meal. Never bone meal 2 tall flowers. You can use Fortune 3 on them if you like, that'll give you more of them, and that is not a bug for some reason. However, what you can do with the bone mealing of the 1 tall flowers is you can get up to 14 individual flowers from 1 bone meal. As you can see, we just got 13 different red tulips from 1 bone meal, giving us 13 dye in total. Definitely a way better investment for bone meal, way better investment for dye, and just overall so much better than these 2 tall flowers. Pretty much the only mechanic that we're using in this farm is the fact that you can bone meal these 1 tall flowers and get more of them. It's basically flower duplication using bone meal. However, as you can see, there's a little bit of funkiness happening. We're bone mealing the other butts out of this, and we've gotten a single flower. That is because it is up a block off the ground. If you put the flower at the same level as the ground like so, as you can see, you get significantly more flowers. However, if you sink the flower down into the ground, and this goes for any of the 1 tall flowers, you get way more. Look at that. A single bone meal resulted in more flowers than like 5 or 6 bone meal at this layer. This is kind of teetering on the edge of what I would call a bug. It doesn't really make logical sense for the flowers to spread upwards way faster than they would spread downwards. So maybe there's like some issues there. I don't fully understand it. Logic not exist. But this is something that is incredibly useful for today's farm, and this is what we're taking advantage of for this build. So how exactly do you use this farm, and how does it work? You turn on the farm, it fully activates, it fully functions, and it basically does everything for you. It'll automatically flush all of the drops into storage, a feature that most flower farms do not have, and do very poorly, where you have to actually manually activate the system to flush everything to storage. Now you'll notice that every single time the floor shifts either to the right or the left, the ground gets bone mealed, and that's how we get so many flowers so quickly. We cannot shift this line of blocks right here, as our flower is right underneath that dispenser. If we shifted this line of blocks, then that would break the flower, so we're instead breaking the flowers that generate right there using overhead pistons. Other than that, all of the logic and all of the circuitry is basically the same as the previous flower farm. However, it does need to be slightly changed and modified to fit this specific design. The biggest issue and the most hassle-y thing about this farm is that whenever you want to switch out what kind of flower you're farming, you need to go below the build, break out one of these grass blocks, and then break out the flower that is currently being farmed and replace it with the one that you now want to farm. You could, in theory, build one of these for every single type of flower in the game, but you know, that's kind of a lot of farms, and I would recommend just switching out the one flower. Honestly, it provides so much. You turn on the farm, use it for 5 minutes on each flower type, and you have enough flowers to last you literally forever. For as simple as this kind of farm may sound, there's actually a lot of different ways that you can design and build this. So I decided to design all 3 major types that I could think of. First of all, we have pistons pushing downwards to break the flowers, and then every now and again we flush the platform with water. Overall, this does work pretty well, but it has the major con of not being able to regrow the grass in the middle, so eventually all the grass is going to die from the water, and it's not really going to regrow. The second major type, of course, is the shifting floor. This is the one that I'll be showing you how to build in today's video, and this works very well. We don't have any issues with the grass regrowing. It's a fairly simple redstone compared to this monster, and overall it just works really, really well. Now, the final version is this monster right here, which I tried to use hopper minecarts to collect all the items. This basically is just non-stop bone mealing, non-stop harvesting, and surprisingly, it actually produces the exact same amount of drops as the other 2 farms, even though this one's going non-stop and the other ones are flushing occasionally. You would think that this one would produce more drops. It doesn't. It's way more complicated. We need 2 8 times speed hopper minecart unloaders and 2 4 times speed unloaders just to get all the items into storage, and it is not worth it. But if you feel like checking out any and all 3 of these designs, there's of course going to be a world download in the description of the video for your convenience. And what about the return on investment for Bonemeal? How good is the Bonemeal farm side of this little project here? Well, it's not really that great compared to what I'm about to show you. The return on investment is about 10%. So if you go ahead and put in 9 stacks of bone meal into the farm, you'll get out about 11.5 stacks of bone meal, which honestly is not too bad. That will add up over time. The bone meal farming side of this project is more for those of you who really want flowers and dyes, and occasionally, sometimes want a bone meal farm, so you can just kind of toggle the system. If you're interested in purely a bone meal farm, this is what you want to build. Whereas the flower farm will give you about a 16% return on investment, this crimson fungus farm will give you about a 41% return on investment. To put that into real numbers for you, if you put in 9 stacks of bone meal, you'll get those 9 stacks back, plus an additional 3.5 stacks of bone meal as well. It is a very good return on investment for bone meal, and definitely way better than the flower farm. So if you're purely interested in automation of bone meal production, this is the farm for you. There's already a tutorial on it on the channel, made just a couple of weeks ago. Links are everywhere. Go build this. And let's hop into the tutorial, shall we? If you're interested, there's going to be a full materials listed down in the description of the video for your convenience. And of course, there's also going to be a world download down there as well for all 3 designs showcased in today's video. You're going to need an 11 wide by 11 long area, 1 block below the ground, and 6 blocks above the ground for this build. It is worth noting that the grass block platform for your flowers to grow on is going to be at the 3rd block up. So if you feel like digging downwards more, so this is at the ground layer of your base or your build area, do that. The first thing that we're going to do is find the center of our build area, so go in from any of your corners by 6 blocks. That is 5 blocks right there, and this is 6. This is going to be the exact center of your entire build. We're going to place a grass block right there. This is where your actual flowers are going to be going that will then be getting bone mealed. Right above this, you want a dispenser facing directly downwards to bone meal that flower, and then above this you want a dropper facing downwards into that, just like so. We're now going to branch out to either the left and the right by 3 blocks with downwards facing pistons. These are going to help harvest all those blocks that we can't normally get with a shifting floor design. And now we want to place in the outline for our grass platform, so go outwards by 3 blocks in every direction from the center point. We're not going to completely fill in the platform at the moment, simply because because that's going to really obstruct the building area. So just simply go ahead and kind of mark out the edges like so. Now that we have the outline in place, we're going to go over to the left side of the build and place in an additional line of grass blocks. So overall, this should be 8 blocks wide by 7 blocks deep of grass. We now need a line of pistons right here on the far left side, a group of 3. Skip yourself a block lined up with these pistons, and then another group of 3 right here. We want to do the same thing on the other side as well, except this one is going to be lined up right with the edge of the build area, so a 1 block gap between your pistons and your grass. Of course, skip the block that is lined up with your central pistons. And now it's time to wire up all of our pistons, so go back behind the build, line yourself up with the central block right there, and make sure there is a 1 block gap between your grass and where you're placing your block right here. This block right here needs to be 1 block below the grass, meaning that your repeater is going to be right at the same level as the grass. This is going to be the main clock for the entire system. Make sure that repeater is on 3 ticks. Go ahead and have yourself some blocks in all of these locations as well. Redstone torch, redstone dust, and that should clock. We're going to go ahead and put a temporary lever on that just to turn it off. Go ahead and place an observer facing that redstone dust right there. Saw a block behind it, and then go ahead and get yourself some slabs in these areas. Redstone dust above all of this, and then a slab to bridge that gap, and finally a solid block right there. We're going to do similar on the other side, so a solid block right there, redstone dust, another block up, redstone dust, and then a couple more blocks in these areas right here. Repeater going into this block, and then redstone dust going all the way along, slab, and then redstone dust going into a block. Now we're going to install some of our walls, that way flowers don't fly out of the farm. So just go ahead and place a wall of glass blocks on the left side. It does need to be grass, so that way the grass does not die. And then we also need a line of glass on the right side as well. Once you get that in place, just run a redstone line right above each and every single one of these things, going all the way across like so. Now go to the right side of the build, right where we have this slab, and we need to go down a couple of solid blocks, redstone dust on those blocks, a couple more blocks, and repeaters on both of those blocks, facing into hoppers that are going to be facing each other. We're now going to be building the hopper clock that controls how often our platform floods and pushes all of our drops into storage. So you want a comparator reading from that hopper going into a block on both sides, just like so. Both of these blocks right here need redstone dust on them, and then you need to place a piston facing towards each other off the sides of that redstone, with a redstone block in the middle of those 2 pistons. Now it's time to install the circuitry below the farm. This is going to control the flushing of your platform. It's going to stop the Bonemeal dispensers and stop the shifting floors as your platform is being flushed with water. That way you don't waste any Bonemeal. You want to place yourself a redstone torch off the side of this block right here with the redstone dust on it, going into a repeater on 4 ticks. 2 pieces of redstone dust, a comparator right here going into a block with a redstone torch on the back side of it like so. Go ahead and place yourself in a redstone dust right there and a comparator right there like so. You also want another piece of redstone dust to power that piston. That way it shuts off the hopper clock and you don't have the system break randomly. You now want a repeater right here on 4 ticks going into a block, a redstone dust, solid block, and then finally another repeater right here to power this redstone. So that is going to shut off the clock, shut off the bone mealing, and shut off the shifting floors when your platform is flushing. Now to install the redstone for our flushing water, you want an observer right here facing that redstone torch, solid block behind that, redstone dust right there, solid block right here, and then a repeater right here going into yet another solid block. We're now going to go right above the farm, place a redstone torch right here on the block the repeater is going into, another solid block right here, and another redstone torch right there. Go ahead and place in a dispenser above that redstone torch and one to the left of it as well. And finally, one dispenser above that redstone torch right there. Yes, you do need 2 on one side because that way you don't have any items get stuck right here on that dispenser. All of the items will always get flushed to your storage system. The final piece of redstone that we need is a super janky redstone line on the back side of this build. So you want to go ahead and mine down 2 blocks right here and place in 2 pieces of redstone dust like so. That should be powered by that repeater. You also want a redstone torch right here underneath that observer. And finally, we're just going to go ahead and wire this redstone line directly into the hopper clock like so. As you can see, very, very janky redstone line, but that ensures that the hopper clock actually turns off when you turn off your build. That way this doesn't start randomly flushing with water when it's supposed to be turned off. Now finish up the walls of the build by placing glass in all of these areas. You need 2 tall walls, that way it keeps all the flowers inside the build, and of course it keeps your water inside the build as well. Go ahead and fill in all the grass blocks for your platform, and now we need to install storage. So install some double chests at this layer right here, 1 block off the ground, a sideways double chest, and then double chest like this, and another double chest right there for symmetry reasons. You'll notice that that is lined up with the platform. We now need to install some hoppers. Hoppers going into the backs of every single one of these chests like so. Hoppers going into the tops of all those chests, and then hoppers going into the sides of all of those ones there too. Now go ahead and finish up the wall of the build made out of glass blocks going all the way around this area to contain the water and the items too. One thing that you should note is that one of these hoppers, this one right here, is going to be permanently locked due to this redstone dust from the hopper clock. That's perfectly fine. You don't actually need that one. This section of the farm doesn't get so many items that it's going to be an issue and get backed up, so just don't include a hopper right there. Or do, for symmetry reasons. If you don't care about storage and you instead want to compost everything for some reason, this is the exact layout of all of your hoppers. Sideways hopper right here to collect the items, and then basically just hoppers going downwards into composters, more hoppers into composters, and then hoppers to collect everything into a central bone meal chest. As you can see, over time, you will get yourself a lot of bone meal. Now go ahead and place 4 hoppers going directly into that dropper right there, and a double chest for your bone meal input. Go ahead and toss some bone meal in there as well. You now want to put a water bucket into each one of your 3 different dispensers and 32 items into your hopper clock down here below. And now grab yourself your 1 tall flower of choice, or multiple if you feel like it. We're going to break out this block right here and place in our 1 tall flower that we want to use the farm with currently. Anyway, place that grass block back, and we should be good to go to turn on the farm and see everything activate for the first time. Currently, the on and off switch is on the back side, and that's going to cause some issues. You'll want to rewire that somehow. Anyway, the first time that you turn on the farm, it's going to flood, of course, and you want to go down here and break and replace this torch really quickly just to reactivate all of those dispensers. But as you can see, the farm is now functioning correctly. It is now flooding correctly as well. One optional thing that I would highly suggest doing is putting an additional layer of grass at this layer above the farm. That way, when any of your grass dies from the water sources, it has a better chance of regrowing really quickly. This is something that we did with the previous flower farm as well. This pattern is going to be a little bit special, so let me just show you an overview of what it looks like. And here's what your grass layer on top of the farm should look like for maximum grass spreadage. Grass can only grow a single block to the side and downwards, so any grass that is like 2 blocks away, for example, is not going to have any effect. That's why these corners don't really do anything. Every single one of these grass blocks in this pattern is only 1 block away from the lower platform, if that makes any sense, and that gives it the best possibility of spreading and growing grass down there whenever this dies. A real quick troubleshooting tip: if you notice that you're having a large buildup of items anywhere along this edge and your hoppers cannot keep up, then just go ahead and put 16 items into your hopper clock, and then that'll make it so that all of your hoppers can keep up just fine without getting backed up, and then all of your items will go into your chest just fine. I would also like to note that I had the incorrect place for the on and off switch. I had it right here. If you have it right here, that's going to power that redstone and then flood your farm every single time you turn it on, and not a good thing. Your proper on and off switch location is right here on this block, and then you would wire this up with a repeater going into that block, and then your redstone line going to the front of the farm for your actual on and off switch to be somewhere convenient. But for the time being, as for testing the farm and whatnot, make sure that your on and off switch is right there. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about today's Bedrock Edition tutorial, then of course let me know in the comment section down below. I'm always trying to help you guys out as best as I possibly can, of course, and hopefully you do really enjoy this farm in your worlds. I put a lot of time into designing these 3 versions, and I think that this one turned out pretty well, so I hope that you get a lot of use out of this in your Minecraft worlds. Anyway, if you did enjoy this video, of course, make sure to leave a like, share around the video with your friends so they can enjoy it as well, and potentially subscribe if you have not already. That way you don't miss miss any future tutorials on the channel, of which there will be many. Otherwise, I'll see you guys down in the comment section, and in the next one, thank you so very much for watching, and then there was silence.